Auzubillahiminasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabbihi ajmain. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. So today we'll be continuing on the topic of earthworks. Inshallah, this will be the second part of the presentation. However, as I mentioned earlier, that the slides here are not really up to my liking because it tends to oversimplify things. However, I will try to explain to you the best that I can in regards with the topics. So that's why when you are studying for your examination, assessment and whatnot, you do not want to be reading the lecturer's PowerPoint presentation slides, okay? Because you will be missing out on a lot of the important points in regard to that topic, okay? So you should read the proper text, proper literature, and then simplify it in your own notes, okay? But usually the PowerPoint slide is more of a guide for lecturers to present the topics. Okay, if you refer to the previous slide, previously we have covered on bulk excavation, a bit on basements. So a lot of, in terms of proper soil, but this today we'll be looking more on rock excavation. Okay, so as we know, when we start digging into the earth, now we come across three main components. We have the solids, the liquids, and also gases or air. Now, in terms of solid, the things that we might discover are usually various types of soil and also rocks. Okay, so when it involves rocks, the methodology that we need to take in terms of removing those rocks can be quite different. Yeah, because it takes a lot more effort to remove rocks compared to soil. And that's why when we are doing construction, we need to do the soil investigation to identify the location and volume of these rocks. Because the methodology is different, and where QSs are concerned, the rate of payment or the pricing is also different. So basically, if you did your soil investigation, you did it improperly, then when the contractor starts to dig and they found out there is mass amount of rocks underground, it's like the contractor found a gold mine. You can imagine the sum of POs that the contractor is going to claim. Yeah? So that's why as a QS we must be alert in this type of thing, especially when it involves cost, increase of cost. So for rocks, okay, over here, the way for us to remove them depends on basically the quantity that is involved, okay, and the scale of our project. So if it is just a small project and doesn't really involve massive amount of rocks, then maybe we resort to the use of manual labor, breaking by hand, either by using tools, traditional tools, or even power tools, such as the pneumatic breaker, okay, or what they call it, the jackhammer. So the next one too is an example of a pneumatic breaker uh, operated by a single person. And also there are other methods that can be used. If the quantity is a bit higher, then we can resort to the use of a plant-mounted breaker. It is like the manhandle pneumatic breaker, but it is larger in size and normally being attached to the boom of the excavator, to the arm of the excavator. So normally we would see that the excavator at the end of the boom is being attached with a bucket. Huh? So we take out the bucket and then we put in the pneumatic breaker. So we will use that to uh, basically crack the rock face. And obviously, this technique would create a lot of noise and a lot of dust. Hmm? And it is unbearably slow. Even you are using machines, but when it involves such a large quantity of rocks, then the progress would be quite, it would take quite some time. And then there are other ways that can be used, normally by either using chemical or freezing liquids. So using these methods, we can break a lot more in terms of the rock face. Okay? And we don't produce noise or dust 24/7. Okay? So we only generate noise and most of the dust when the actual rock face is being demolished. This is true especially for blasting method. Okay? So um, let's have a look there. Really machine blasting. Okay. So the way that this method is carried out is almost similar. Okay, we have um, first of all, they will drill holes at the rock face. Okay, so you have a rock face, they will drill holes in a certain pattern. So the way they drill the hole is by using a drilling machine that has a number of arms, normally 2 to 4 arms, so they can drill 2 to 4 holes at the same time. So this machine is known on site is as jumbo, a jumbo driller. So they will drill holes, and when the hole has been completed, um, they would um charge up the holes with uh, blasting agent. Okay? Normally, what they use is N4, okay? Ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. Okay, so this blasting agent is quite dangerous, okay, especially in large quantity. Okay, if you can remember what happened in Beirut, was it? Okay, where they stored huge number of ammonium nitrate in a warehouse, kan? And then meletup, huh? And the entire town is being destroyed. Okay, so that is the blasting agent. Okay, so once they have charged up each holes, and then they put in the fuse. Okay, the fuse is using electric lah. Okay? Electric charge. The blasting contractor will calculate lah the blasting pattern that is required, meaning that the blasting agent does not explode exactly at the same time. So they blast in a certain pattern. Okay. So once they have charged the hose, and then they will blast it. So what happens is that chunks of rock will start to fall over, and then they will call in the machines, dump truck, excavator, whatnot, to carry out the debris. And then they will continue this process. Okay. So this process has 4 stages. We have drilling, we have charging, we have blasting, and we have what they call as marking or cut away lah. So they will continue this loop until they reach their target. So if you are using like a chemical agent, is also quite the same lah, but tak adalah blasting kan. They drill, they put in the chemical agent, then it will cause the rock face to crack. Okay, and then they will start to tear down the rock face and then cut it away. Obviously, the use of a chemical agent will not generate as much noise or dust as the previous methods. Yeah? Even the use of this freezing liquid. Yeah? Okay. So, do you realize that when liquid freezes over time, it will tend to expand? Okay. Ingat air panas je expand. Okay. Even water, kalau you buat ice, which I did, and I did not realize it. I put the water in a Tupperware and closed it and put it in the freezer. And over time, the Tupperware cracked. Shows that the ice had expanded a bit. Tengok apa Tupperware dah pecah. Okay. So they use the same technique to crack the rock face. Obviously, this method would also take time, and it would cost a lot more. Okay. So normally we don't like to waste time, so we would use other methods. However, you will not find the blasting methods, especially in Malaysia, being utilized in populated areas. It's not like overseas, where they blast an entire building and boom, terus collapse on itself. And in Malaysia, the security forces will not allow that. So if you have to demolish something, buildings or rock face in Malaysia, especially in populated areas, you would have to go for the previous methods. manually or by using breakers. Okay? Obviously, it will take a longer time, but it will also be a lot more safe. I was lucky because at my site is right in the middle of a jungle. Nobody is going to be there except for the workers. eh. We were building a dam, and we have this diversion tunnel. So the tunnel has to be blasted away. So we had experience in using blasting method to break the rocks underground. And let me tell you, it's not a very pleasant process. So very dusty. You are not allowed to enter the tunnel. Only the specialist will be entering the tunnel. Okay, because of the risk. And the blasting agents and whatnot, okay, the primary storage area is at the local police station. Cannot store massive amount of info on site. It's illegal. Okay, so a lot of procedures to be fulfilled, and that's why, and it's not being allowed. So that's why contractors use the breakers. And there's also this one thing, if you Google it out, called the concrete nibbler. That is more towards demolishing buildings. Okay, it will grab a chunk of concrete and it will crush it into smaller pieces. Normally, for it to be used again as aggregate and what. Yeah, the crusher run lah, sorry, crusher run. So rock excavation depend on type of material, quantity involved. Those are the two main things. Condition alamak, slide pun boleh tahan. Okay, condition of site, okay, and the equipments that are available to the contractor lah. All right, next, this is how the techniques are being selected. Okay. So the first three methods are suitable where any of the following conditions prevail. Three methods apa? Manual, using breaker, using power tool, and using freezing liquid, using chemicals. Yeah. Basically, we can use that in populated areas. The fourth is not allowed to be used in populated areas. Adjacent building may subject to damage, blasting may cause inconvenience, landslide, okay, and overbreak. These are the risks that can happen if you use blasting method. Which leaves us to wonder how the blasting contractors overseas, they are very, very skilled. They can even design the blasting pattern so that the building will fall a certain way. Whether not just falling left or right, but if it's supposed to fall on itself, to implode, itu pun dia ada blasting pattern yang dia boleh design. Landslide and rockfall. So when you use blasting, there's a risk of landslide. Yeah? So because of the vibration that you generate. Yeah? And believe me, it is quite strong. Yeah? My site, when they did the first blast, okay, they wanted to do the first blast. However, the subcon did not call upon the main con when they started to blast. And the shock wave and the vibration is so loud that our cabin, container cabin, really shook. Okay, so the shock wave is one thing, and then you would have like debris falling, and also the risk of landslide. Okay, so sangat berbahaya. A nightmare lah for our safety officer there. And also overbreaking will be uneconomical. You do not want to break the rock face into two small rocks, because it will be difficult to move them. It will take a long time to cut them away. Okay. All right, so now we have modern methods of basically we are doing blasting in a more miniature scale and very precise blasting. Okay, so that is a new method. So that's how they are able to take down buildings in the middle of a city without damaging people around them that much. Okay, next is trench excavation. So to choose the method depends on the purpose, whether you are digging for drainage to put in your cables, pipes, and whatnot. Then nature of the ground. When you dig for your trench, especially for civil engineering works, you are going through a lot of types of soil. Okay, so each of those types of soil might need different techniques. Then, of course, groundwater condition, especially when you're digging for rain. That location of the trench, okay, side of the road, under the road, okay, different techniques, and the obstruction, obviously. Going through river, large drains, going under roads. So three techniques of digging for trench: full depth, full length. This is when your trench is not that deep and it is not that long. Okay, normally for building works. So you can just start excavate to the platform level and you excavate the entire length. Okay, simple. Um, Next is full depth successive stages. So your trench is not that deep, but it's very long. Okay, so if you just rely on one contractor to do the entire trench excavation, it would take a long time. Okay, so normally what happens in especially civil engineering construction, they would divide those lengths into packages. And package A, package B, package C. So each of the packages will have a dedicated contractor. So by doing that way, we can ensure that in this case, the trench excavation process will be completed earlier. Okay? Got more people working in the project. And the third one is the most difficult: stage depth successive stages. Okay, so meaning that your trench is actually deep and is very long. Okay, so when that happens, you have to excavate in stages. So you excavate to a certain depth, and then you put your support. Okay. So once your ground support is in order, and then you excavate some more. Okay, excavate some more, put the next level of ground support until you reach the platform level that you require. And then on top of that, you need to do that in stages. Again, ada package A, B, C. So all of them needs to do the same thing, digging in stage depth. Yeah. So this is usually at, kalau drain tu is at the near the end of the drains run. Okay. Tongkang bahagian hilir tu biasanya dalam lah. Yeah. So this method is suitable for long narrow trenches, shallow depth. Okay. Suitable for pipelines. Alright. So this one I have explained lah. So this is full depth, full length. They use this trench machine. It will make your work a lot faster. And then full depth successive stages. Why do we want the work to be completed as soon as possible? Apa tu? Korek What happens to this excavation when it starts to rain? Is jadi kolam is one thing, but the more immediate danger is that the wall of the excavation will start to fail, okay, because of presence of a lot of water. Okay. Which means that if that happens, you have to excavate again. More cost for you. If there are people down there, they can be in danger. Right? So trench excavation is just like any other earthworks, which they need to be completed as soon as possible. We don't want to leave this excavation exposed to the environment for too long. Yeah? That's the best case scenario lah. And then this is the purpose. Okay. You can imagine for people to go down there, they have to use the excavator. Okay. It's very deep. Normally they would use ladders lah. This kind of depth, obviously, even if they have put in all the support for the excavation, when the rain comes, not just because of the change of weather, but the season, the rainy season comes in, the soil will be saturated with water. So it will make the soil a lot heavier and a lot more easy for it to move around. That's why when the rainy season comes, we can see landslides. Tanah runtuh dan sebagainya. What makes the soil begin to slide is not just because of the soil. It's because of the water inside the soil due to the rainy season. So the same goes here. In trench excavation, let's say you dig in stage depth, you put a lot of your timber support and whatnot. You have to remember that the support now during the rain does not only have to to hold back the soil, but it also needs to hold back the water in the soil. So there are cases that the normally timber timber support will fail. Okay, the timber planks will start to fail because of the extreme pressure. They call it the hydrostatic pressure. So if you use something like a sheet pile, that would fare a better chance lah. Okay. Tapi tak ada siapa buat trench excavation support guna sheet pile. Bankrupt lah kontraktor itu. Okay. So you have to remember the danger of doing earthworks during the rainy ataupun monsoon season. Yeah? We here in Malaysia, when we see like a very heavy rain, kan, we call it hujan, it's rain. Okay? But it's not actually. If you go overseas, when they talk about rain, it's just a very light droplets of water. What happens in Malaysia, especially bila hujan yang sangat lebat tu, they call it a monsoon rain. Basically hujan yang sangat-sangat lebat. Okay? So, especially in Malaysia, we have to watch out for the monsoon season when doing earthworks. Okay, so next, the type of support. Support for excavation. Obviously, we can't dig very deep without putting in the right type of support. So, support of excavation depends on the type of soil, groundwater condition, and depth and width of excavation. Okay, even the type of soil, we have what? Clay soil, silty soil, sandy soil. Kan? If you go into depth learning about earthworks, you will come across these different types of soil. Each of them requires different types of support. If you are to talk about mud or silty soil, if you are putting support, we cannot have the support, the planks away from each other. So the board or the planks needs to be close. We don't want the silt to come into the excavation. We try to keep it as minimum as possible. Whereas if you have like a very strong wall for the excavation, the boards can be further apart from each other. But that is on the dry season lah. When it's the wet season, it's an entirely different issue. Okay, groundwater condition. Okay, so we have to remember that the water, especially groundwater, is the biggest enemy for earthworks because the water acts as a lubricant. It allows the soil particles to move around a lot easier. Okay, so that's why tanah, if we put water, it will lose its load-bearing capacity. So that's the danger there. Presence of water during excavation. And obviously, the wider and deeper you excavate, the more support that you need. So even for type of soil, we have three types: loose sand, gravel, and silt; compact sand and stiff clays, and rocks. So for loose sand, gravel, and silts, okay, so these are type of soil which are very loose. Okay. So we need trench sheeting, lightweight pressed steel sheets, or Kalau nak senang cerita, pasang sheet pile lah. Habis. End of story. Okay. That's the best that you can do for temporary support. So this type of soil are likely to slump quickly. Pernah buat slump test? Slump test. Pernah dengar? Tak pernah come across. Slump test ni biasa kita buat pada konkrit. Okay. We mix the concrete up and then kita masukkan dalam bekas tu. Dan kita terbalikkan dia. Dan kita angkat. And then kita measure berapa tinggi konkrit tu. Okay. So if the concrete slumps easily, maksudnya bila kita angkat acuan tu, konkrit dalam tu semua jatuh ke bawah. Kan? Kalau it doesn't slump that easily, maksudnya kita angkat acuan tu, konkrit tu will still maintain dia punya shape. Kan? So for soil, maksudnya soils that slump quickly ni maksudnya tanah yang mempunyai keupayaan gas beban yang rendah. Okay. So this type of soil yang basically mudah runtuh lah. The support must be placed immediately after excavation takes place. Sometimes before they excavate pun dia dah letak support tu. Kan? Contoh macam sheep pile. They drive the sheep pile underground. Masuk, baru dia korek. Because of the risk of the soil yang mudah untuk runtuh. So, this means that the deep excavation will have to be dug in stages. So, the first level of excavation normally will be done by machine. Okay? Because there are no obstacle from the support. But when you excavate to the second stage, you have all the support lah, you punya bracing, bracing here, there, macam-macam. You punya excavator punya boom tak boleh nak masuk untuk excavate. Kan? Takut kena support tu boleh runtuh. So normally the next stages that goes even deeper, they would resort to the use of miniature machine. Okay. Excavator yang comel-comel kecil tu. Or they would use labor lah. Kaedah manual. So this is some ideas for you, okay, for the use of sheet pile for temporary support. A good thing about sheet pile ni, it is interlocking lah. Yeah? And you can even make the interlocking part of the sheet pile to watertight. Okay, so you can see here they are laying a pipe. And they've used sheet pile for the trench support. Sheet pile saja tak cukup, dia ada panggil ni bracing. Bracing dia ni daripada besi. Okay, so they are not taking any chances. So when you have this type of obstacles, normal size machines cannot work in this kind of condition. Next is the use of timber, like this one. This is for a rather small scale or medium scale excavation on very, what you call it, stable soil. Okay. So you don't have to fork up a lot of money to use sheet piles. You can use this method. They're known as the polling boards. Okay. Basically, they are just planks of timber that are being put at both sides. Okay, and then they have this like another layer of timber to give it more strength, and then they have this bracing lah. Okay, so it helps to keep the cost down. Okay, sebab benda ni pun temporary structure je. Okay, and then if you are not digging that deep, tak payahlah nak pakai chipal kan. You kan besok kerja kat site ke, tengok you punya site nak korek longkang ke, you pergi order chipal satu trailer. Pengsan lah bos you okay. Ini pun dah memadai. You can see that the polling boards here is close to each other. Okay. But if the soil is really strong, you can even put a bit of distance between those polling boards. But you have to remember this is during the dry season. When the wet season comes, this polling board will become obsolete. So you better make sure. That's why usually Earthworks they would put the job to be done during the dry season. So before the wet season comes, the job is completed. So what about rocks? Okay. So do you put polling boards too? Or chipal? Chipal pun tak boleh tembus because it's rock face. So for rock face, they would resort to the use of rock boats. Namanya rock boats. For those who have done a bit of DIY kat rumah tu, it's the same concept as the wall plug. Saya pun pernah pasang wall plug besi tu You nak gantung apa kat dinding, gambar tak adalah kot kan. Macam nak gantung TV ke apa kat dinding tu, you will use this metal punya wall plug kan. You drill hole to the wall, you masukkan you punya wall plug, okay, pasang you punya equipment and then you ikat. What happens is that when you tie up that wall plug, it will start to expand a metal sheet dalam tu to hold onto the wall, so that the wall plug will not move. Okay, so the same goes here. The concept is the same. Only dia punya wall plug tu lagi panjang, lagi tinggi daripada kamu lah. Okay. So normally they will come up with the design, okay, where to drill. So they will drill again using jumbo. So the jumbo is a very useful equipment on site. Okay. So they will drill it. Bila dah drill, they would put in this rock boat. Dia akan masukkan rock boat. Okay. So once it's in position, at the end here there is a bolt. Okay, you can see here there's a bolt, and it's a very big bolt. So they have to use like a hydraulic wrench to tie up that bolt. So when they tie up this part of the bolt, the other end will start to expand. Bahagian hujung yang lagi satu tu, as the rod comes in, it will start to expand and hold the internal part of the hole. So the rod bolt will not move. Okay. So when it has properly been tied up, okay, so of course ada bacaan dia lah berapa torque they have to achieve before dia dah ikat lah kan. And then they may pump in grout. Maksudnya antara batang besi ni and the hole itself ada ruang kosong actually. So they may leave it as it is ataupun dia pump in grout to fill it up. So grout ni is just a mixture of cement and sand. Dia pump dalam tu untuk tutup lubang. Sebab mungkin dia nak elakkan the rod from rusting. Okay. So if you go to Google dan sebagainya, you want to look about this, you type in rock bolts. Sebab batu ni, the rock face is actually like a layer cake. No? Dia ada lapisan-lapisan dia. So kita try nak ikat all the layers, ikat dia semua so that it becomes one unit. Dia jadi stabil. Okay, next, embankment. A wide wall of earth or stone built to stop water from flooding an area or to support road or railway. So this is known as embankments. So how to construct such design feature? So the construction of embankment and the design profile of the sloping side will depend on a number of factors. So embankments ni, in a simple term, we can say it as penambakan. Okay. So it's the opposite of excavation. Kan? Kita panggil cut and fill kan. Cut tu is the excavation. Filling is the construction of embankment. So as I said earlier, for excavation, we can dig in one shot or dig in stages lah kan. But for construction of embankments, filling work, it has to be done in layers. Okay? Layer by layer. Again, it has its process. First, we spread the soil, meaning that soil that has been approved by the engineer to be used as an embankment material. Okay. So we spread it across a certain length, spread it, and then we compact it, and then we test it. Test. Bila lulus ujian, baru kita buat the next layer. Okay. Sebab kerja-kerja penambakan tu kita tak boleh buat sekali agung. Sebab for sure, dia akan mendap. Yeah. So that's why it needs to be done in layers dan dipadatkan properly so that we take out the air pockets inside the soil. Air pockets tu yang menyebabkan tanah tu mendap sebenarnya. Okay. Too much air in the soil. So they have the punya cycle there. Spread material, compact, and then test it, panggil core sampling. Ambil core, test it at the soil lab. Bila dah mencapai density ataupun kepadatan yang sepatutnya, lulus lapisan tu, and then go to the next layer. Repeat the process until you reach your platform level. Itu untuk bahagian yang tengah ni. Tapi yang bahagian tepi ni, normally dia akan buat macam cerun, macam itulah. Cerun tu can be biasanya daripada soil jugalah. Soil. So design profile will depend on the purpose of which embankment is constructed. As example, the loads involved. Kan kalau kita nak buat jalan kan, the original soil tu macam rendah. Kita nak tinggikan, kita nak tambak dia naik atas. Okay, boleh. But what kind of traffic that you expect will pass through that embankment? Kan? Kalau setakat motosikal, kereta biasa tak kira okey lah buat embankment yang biasa-biasa. But if we talk about heavy trucks and things like that, so the embankment needs to be constructed more carefully. Consolidation of the field in under embankment under proposed road. Consolidation maksudnya how packed the soil are. And if you check the specifications, they would say, especially for earthworks, embankment works, they will say the spread layer needs to be compacted by certain type of compactor, specifikasi this with a certain number of passes. Maksudnya compactor tu ataupun bulldozer has to go through berapa kali, kan, ke depan ke belakang tu, katakan 8 passes. Okay, so the compactor akan lalulah kali, 2 kali, 3 kali, 4 kali sampai 8 kali. Okay, meaning that layer dah dipadatkan mengikut spesifikasi. So nak tahu berjaya ataupun tak, tu yang kena buat core test tu. Ambil core, buat testing. Okay. Problem is in Malaysia, tak nak tuduh siapa-siapa lah, but it happen. Consultant pun sendiri mengaku kat saya. People take shortcuts. Patut 8 passes, jadi berapa? Jadi 2 pass. Jadi 4 pass. Okay, kau timnya hal. So bila jalan siap, jadi jalan macam jalan kereta kuda, kan? Melambung-lambung jalan tu dia bergalun, kan? Because the soil was not compacted properly. Antara sebabnya lah. So that's the danger there. Okay. And then stability of ground on which the embankment is to be constructed. Tanah asal tu yang kita nak buat kerja penambakan tu, the original condition of the soil macam mana? Obviously we have to take out dia punya top layer, and then identify the strong layer of the soil, kan, before we start embankment works. The extent to which the strength property of the field may be affected by method of construction. Okay. Cost of obtaining suitable field material, ni pun satu hal. When you don't have the soil, you have to import it from somewhere. There is extra cost. Unless you are using field material yang tidak memenuhi spesifikasi. Okay. So kat sini dia punya site officer kena be alert lah. Kontraktor tidak menggunakan fill material yang telah diluluskan oleh site officer. Difficulty in construction during adverse weather. Ni salah siapa? Consultant lah. Okay. Siapa suruh time kerja-kerja tanah waktu musim hujan, kan? Tu nak kena cari konsultan tu pergi sekeh kepala dia. Okay. So the method of constructing an embankment depend upon the extent of work, type of field, and the nature of site. So this is, yang gambar ni is embankment works for the construction of earthfield dam. Okay. Tadi tu kita buat embankment untuk jalan raya je. Isunya tak berapa tinggi sangat. Tapi when you are doing embankments, especially earthfill dams. So you punya pemadatan tu kena betul-betul padat, kan? Kalau tidak, air boleh penetrate, boleh tembus you punya earth core ni, and then come out the other side. So sangat membahaya. Okay. So bila buat kerja ampangan ni, which is ialah ada kat side saya tu, dia punya number of passes of the bulldozer tu, compactor machine tu, itu memang kena sangat teliti. Fill material should be tipped and spread in layers. Ni saya dah explain lah tadi. Where large volume of fill are involved, density factor obtained in the lab may be achieved, not be achieved on site. Ini memang jenis, ini tak lulus kan ni. Meaning that the density that is supposed to be reached by, katakan tadi 8 passes of the compactor machine, kita tak mencapai kepadatan yang sepatutnya. So solution, lalu lagi lah buat more passes of the compactor machine sampai mencapai density yang sepatutnya. Okay. So discrepancy by the correct selection of compaction plant and soil type and moisture content. These are the variables that the engineer can manipulate untuk meningkatkan soil density lah. Okay. So this is embankment, obviously untuk ampangan. So bayangkan kalau tanah kat dalam ampangan ni tak padat, tak betul-betul solid, agak-agak berapa lama ampangan tu boleh bertahan sebelum dia runtuh. So it's very dangerous. Safe angle of any embankment slope will depend on ni dia nak cerita tentang cerun ni lah ni. Okay. Slope ni. Berapa cerun, berapa angle yang kita nak gunakan. Kan? That angle depends on the type of soil. Kalau soil tu slump quickly, maksudnya tanah tu mudah untuk runtuh, obviously angle dia akan jadi landai. This angle. Kita tak boleh buat dia tinggi, cerun dia terlalu tinggi lah, terlalu curam. But if the soil is quite stable, we can create this slope at a much steeper angle. Kita boleh buat cerun tu lagi curam. So normally between 45 to 20 degrees. Kalau macam tanah pasir kan, tanah pasir macam mana you nak buat tinggi-tinggi kan? Obviously dia akan runtuh. So that one is about 30 degrees saja. Okay, so this is what construction of access embankment and container terminal site. So these are all reclaimed lands. Tanah yang diguna semula. So they are expanding this port. Okay. So obviously these soils have been compacted properly. If not, air akan meresap masuk ke dalam tanah ni and the machine cannot go over the soil. Okay. Alright, so that's a bit on rock excavation, trench excavation, and embankments. So now you have the basic knowledge of those type of information. I would suggest you to look online and try to find good videos or documentary that will explain you further about this topic. Okay. Sebab kalau kita belajar benda ni without looking at the actual thing, it won't stick. Yeah. Sekarang ni memang dah tak boleh pergi site. Tengok video je lah, kan? Dan tengok video lagi nampak. Alright.